Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Krishna, Prabhupada, Hare Krishna. You read a little something from the Ramayana, pastimes, Ramachandra. Sitaram, 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 Sitaram. Hare Krishna. This is chapter 13. It's a condensed version taken from the Tamil translation by Kamban and then condensed by Rajagopalachari. It follows the storyline really nicely. Yeah, we can get some idea of the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra. It's easy to read. Hare Krishna. So up to this point, Sita and Ram are united. They've been living in Ayodhya as the prince and his princess, as a couple, married couple. The father, Dasarath, is still the king, but his son, Ramachandra, has his wife, and they've been living like that for 12 years. Now Dasarath's getting old, and it's getting harder for him to do things, and it's time for him to pass the scepter of power, to one of his sons. And he's chosen Ramachandra, and everyone's happy about it. He's personality of Godhead incarnate, so can't go wrong there. Although they don't think of him that way. They just love him for his qualities. But years ago, when Dasarath was having trouble conceiving a child, none of his queens, it seemed, could conceive a child by him. There was a sacrifice that was performed, and a special food substance came from the sacrifice. It was given by the demigods. And the different queens took a little bit. Everyone took something. And sure enough, they became fertile, and they could produce a child. They all had sons. But before that, when King Dasarath asked for the hand of Kaikeyi, she was a princess, her father said that he would give him his daughter if the child born from her, son born from her, would inherit the kingdom, and that was Bharat. It wasn't Ram. So now it's time to coronate the new king, and everyone's excited about Ram, but there's this old promise. And a man's only as good as his word. And he gave that promise. So he was hoping everyone would forget it. That we'll just forget it. And even Kaikeyi, who was the mother of Bharat, she was fine. Although she knew about the promise. She was fine because she loved Ram too. She's a devotee. And her son is a Vishnu expansion. He's also part of the Chaturvyuha, the Vishnu expansion. And her maidservant was contaminated. And she was a little close with this maidservant, and the maidservant started planting seeds of doubt in her mind. Material fears, misgivings. How it's well known in royal families there's sibling rivalry for the throne, and sometimes a brother will kill a brother so he can get the kingdom. And that's what we see with the Mahabharata. It's a battle for power within the royal family. Who's going to get to be the big cheese and tell everybody else what to do? So, with the power of force to back it up. So you have to surrender to these. Anyway, the battle, struggle for power. And then Kaikeyi, she's hearing all these misgivings that her maidservant is saying. That Ram will want to kill your son because he'll see him as competition. Because that's the kinds of things that go on in materialistic situations. And you'll have nothing. You'll be left by the wayside. And you're a queen, and you won't be seen. And there's nothing for you in this. There's no future for you in this. Remember that promise? Now is the time to claim your right and have Bharat put on the throne and have Ram banished to the forest. So Kaikeyi is listening to this. She says, this is horrible. This is not my mindset at all. What's with you? But battering away with this, Kaikeyi began to succumb to this bad counsel. Who you listen to, they can plant all kinds of seeds of doubt and fear and envy and greed. They can plant those things in someone. Even someone who's trying to control themselves or has some attraction for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By bad association, these things can be planted, these doubts. And then a course of action that is less than optimal might be taken up based on this seeds of doubt. So this is chapter 13, Kaikeyi succumbs. Kaikeyi, who had looked upon Ram as her own son, was enmeshed in Mantra's arguments and became helpless. Indeed, I am afraid, she said. Tell me what we should do. Am I to be a servant to Kausalya, Ram's mother? Never. Bharat must be crowned. You're quite right. And Ram must be sent to the forest. But how shall we get all this done? Tell me. You are clever and you know the way. And she clung to Manthara. This is a big trip for Manthara. Yeah. In Kaikeyi's eyes at that time, Manthara's crooked frame appeared handsome. Manthara was physically distorted. She was a hunchback. In Kaikeyi's eyes at that time, Manthara's crooked frame appeared handsome. This is not a joke. It is a psychological, subtle psychological phenomenon. Oh yeah. Someone who's very ugly or deformed can look very beautiful, depending on the mindset. This is indeed strange, Kaikeyi said. This is indeed strange, Kaikeyi, said Manthara. It is for me to tell you how this could be brought about? Have you really forgotten? Or are you only pretending? But if you want me to say it, I shall do so. Listen. And then she paused. How diplomatic she is. She never oversteps her bounds as being a servant of Kaikeyi. And then she paused. Kaikeyi, all impatient, cried, Tell me, tell me. Somehow Bharat must be crowned and Ram's coronation must be stopped. Very well, said Manthara. I shall tell you. Do not be impatient. You remember how your husband Dasarath long ago fought against Sumbra in the south, and you were with him, were you not? Your husband went, did he not, to help Indra. Sumbra of Vaijayanti was too powerful for Indra, who sought Dasarath's help. Did not Dasarath get wounded in battle and lose consciousness? Then you drove his chariot skillfully out of the battlefield, gently removed the arrows from his body, revived him, and saved his life. Have you forgotten all this? And what did he tell you then? He told you in gratitude, ask me for 2 boons. I shall give you anything you want. Then you answered, I shall ask for my boons later. I want nothing now. Then he promised, did he not? You will have 2 gifts, whenever you want them. You told me all this long ago yourself. You may have forgotten it, but I have not. The time has arrived to get him to redeem his promise. Demand he should crown Bharat instead of Ram. This will be the first of 2 gifts he promised. For the second gift, ask that Ram be sent to the forest for 14 years. Do not be frightened. Do not fear to ask. Do not think it sinful to demand this. Do what I tell you. It is only if Ram is sent into the forest that his hold on the people will relax and disappear in course of time, and your son's position will be secure. Go now, lie down in the sulking room. Throw away your fine dress and your jewels, wear an old sari, and stretch yourself on the floor. When the king enters the room, do not speak to him. Do not even look at him. I am sure he cannot endure your sorrow. You will then have your way with him. The king will try to get round you. Do not yield. He will offer many alternatives. Accept none of them. Insist on the 2 boons. Be firm. Bound by his promise, the king will finally come around. I know how passionately he loves you. He would give up his life for your sake. To please you, he would jump into fire. Do what I tell you. Do not be afraid. Unless Ram is sent to the forest, your wish will not be fulfilled. Ram must be sent away. Only then the position you get for Bharat will be real and lasting. Remember this, and mind you, do not weaken. So we ran into, a few chapters back, the confrontation between Parashuram and Ram. And Parashuram is a manifestation of Ram, or Krishna, and Ram is Krishna. It's an incarnation of Krishna. So we had the 2 incarnations at loggerheads. Parashuram was challenging Ram. Of course, Ram won. Parashuram lost all his potencies and became a peaceful rishi. Instead of killing Kshatriyas, became a peaceful rishi. There was no more need for killing. But it was a confrontation between the Vishnu form and the Leela form. Ram being the Leela form, and Parashuram more like a Vishnu maintainer form. Not so much pastimes. Unless killing everyone is considered a pastime, which I suppose it is. That's a little different than Ram Leela or Krishna Leela. So here also, there's a confrontation because Bharat is a Vishnu manifestation. He's not an ordinary son. He's the part of the chapter of Yuha. When Krishna, he expands Shankarshan, Pradyumna, Vasudeva, son of Vasudeva, Shankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. So here also, there's 4 expansions. Ram, Shatrughna, Bharata, and Lakshman. Ram, Lakshman, Shatrughna, and Bharata. It's the chapter of Yuha. But Ram is the source of the incarnations. He's the central figure, and everything is meant to serve Ram. So here, Kaikeyi, she's making a mistake. she's wanting to put her son, although he is a Vishnu manifestation, in the position of Ram, being the... So it's a mistake. So it's confusing for Kaikeyi, Hare Krishna. And then she's got all this bad counsel going. Self-interested mantra. If something happens to my boss, Kaikeyi, what's going to happen to me? And I'm deformed to begin with. No one's going to, this Kaikeyi is my everything. She's my meal ticket. She's my, I got nothing going for me without Kaikeyi. And so they've got this agenda thing going and giving bad counsel. You're self-motivated. Selfish motivation. But it's confusing for Kaikeyi because Bharat is a Vishnu manifestation. He does have good qualities. So Mantra's, she's good, boy. She knows how to set the trap here. Kaikeyi doesn't even think like that. That's not Kaikeyi. She doesn't think like that. To trap Dasarath into doing something. She's very simple, but she's being pushed by this mantra. Listening to this exhortation, Kaikeyi's face shone with hope. "What a brain you have, mantra!" exclaimed Kaikeyi. "You have been the saving of me." And she jumped about in joy like a filly. "Oh, mantra!" Mantra repeated again and again that Ram must be sent to the forest. Do not delay. What needs to be done, do it at once. It is no good strengthening the tank bund after the waters have flown out. Remember what I've told you. Everything depends on your firmness. Victory is yours if you do not yield. So these are Kshatriyas. We can see Kaikeyi in a battle with this Sambara demon, who was too powerful for Indra. And Dasarath went to the aid of the demigods to fight this Sambara. Kaikeyi was there on the chariot with him. We see that with Rukmini and Krishna also. When Krishna kidnapped her, Rukmini was driving the horses to get kidnapped. And Krishna was fighting the opposing armies. She's driving the chariot. So these are Kshatriyas, very high-spirited. And victory is appealing, to have victory is a Kshatriya thing. Kaikeyi assured Mantra of her firmness, and forthwith entered the sulking room, removed her jewels, scattered them on the floor, changed her clothes, stretched herself on the floor, then, assuming a broken voice, she said, "Mantra, you will yourself carry the news to my father. You will tell him one of two things, either that Bharata is to be crowned or that Kaikeyi is dead. My dear, dear Mantra." Kaikeyi, in her anger, believed that Dasarath had really been treacherous to her. Even then, stretched on the ground, divesting herself of all ornaments, and putting on a face of grief and anger, she looked inexpressibly beautiful, so great was her beauty. A sinful thought had found lodgment in her mind, and her whole nature was transformed. The fear that she would lead a slave's life, and that even Bharat's life was in peril, had gotten hold of her. For the first time in her life, she cast aside the sense of shame and sin and hardened her heart. Heaving with heavy sighs, perspiring, and with eyes closed, Kaikeyi, beautiful like a Naga goddess, unbraided her hair and lay on the floor with disheveled tresses and sprawling like a bird shot down by a hunter. The flowers and shining jewels which once adorned her person lay scattered on the dark room like stars in the midnight sky. Having dismissed the assembly and given orders for the due celebration of the coronation ceremony, Dasarath, relieved of care and wishing to relax, sought the apartments of his favorite consort. He had decided on the coronation of Ram after receiving the approval of all those who had a right to be consulted, and he felt happy and free after lying down after a heavy burden, laying down a heavy burden. So his favorite consort was Kaikeyi, and now that he's decided and the burden of passing the kingdom on is off his shoulders, and it's agreed it's going to take place tomorrow, he's heading for his favorite queen, Kaikeyi. He entered Kaikeyi's chamber to tell her the happy news and spend in pleasant talk the night before the coronation. The junior queen's residence was a beautiful palace with lovely gardens and tanks, birds playing in the water, and peacocks dancing with tails spread out and trees resplendent with bright flowers. In Dasarath's happy mood, it appeared unusually beautiful that night. He's going to go be with his consort, Kaikeyi. Like the full moon rising brightly before an eclipse, without knowing that the eclipse that lies in wait for her, the poor old king entered Kaikeyi's dwelling with a beaming face. The incense pots and drinks were in their usual places, but he did not see the queen whom he was eager to meet. Of all his consorts, Kaikeyi was the one whose company he sought for joyous relaxation from all cares of state, for she never interfered in public affairs and always waited for him at the entrance and welcomed him with a warm embrace. But today, she was nowhere to be found. The king was perplexed. He went around and looked in vain for her in all her favorite haunts, thinking that she was playing a sweet game of hide and seek. He did not find her. This sort of thing had never happened before. He asked a maidservant where the queen was. Folding her hand in reverence, the girl said, "Lord, the queen is angry. She's in the inner chamber." The surprised king entered the room, and he saw a sight which amazed and distressed him. For there she lay on the bare floor, with draggled robes and disheveled hair, like one in mortal pain. She seemed too full of anguish even to look at him as he entered. The poor guileless king, all unconscious of having given any cause for offense, behaved with the doting fondness of an old husband and seated himself by her on the floor, stroked her hair, strove to console her with loving words and caresses. "What has come over you? Are you ill? Do you feel any pain? Have I not the best doctors in the land? I shall send for them at once. They can cure any malady. Do not be afraid." Kaikeyi sighed heavily but would not speak. The king proceeded, "Was anyone in the palace guilty of discourteous behavior? Tell me, I shall punish him. Did anyone slight you, or was there anything you wanted which I neglected to give you? Tell me." In this way, he mentioned faults that might have occurred in the running of a big house and asked her what the matter was and why she was upset. Kaikeyi paid no attention to his requests and was mute, like one possessed. The king begged her, more importantly, "State your wish. It shall be done. Do you want anyone punished? I shall punish him. Do you want anyone freed from punishment? I shall free him, even if he's a murderer. You know my absolute authority. I can give and I can take as I please. Anything, to anyone. I can do what I wish. Ask me anything. It shall be done at once." Kaikeyi sat up. The king was pleased, and she began. "No one slighted or dishonored me, but there is something which you can do, and you must do it for my sake. Give me your word that you will fulfill my desire. Then I shall tell you what it is." Hearing this, the unsuspecting old man was filled with joy. Possessing absolute powers, he had no doubt He could fulfill her wishes, whatever they were, and so boldly and joyously he said, "Well, Kaikeyi, tell me your wish. It shall be done. I swear it. I swear it on all I love most, on you, the dearest among women, and on Ram, dearest to me among men. I swear in the name of Ram, whatever you desire I shall do. I promise, I swear." Guileful wickedness and trustful misfortune were reaching the climax in their unequal encounter. The king, swearing in the name of Ram, filled Kaikeyi with supreme delight. She was now sure that she had won, for the king would never break a promise coupled with that beloved name. "Do you promise?" "Very well," she exclaimed. "Swear again in the name of Ram that you will do what I wish without fail. Swear it." The king said, "My beloved queen, I promise. I swear it on Ram. Whatever you wish I shall do. This is my sworn word." At this stage, as she thought of the tremendousness of her intended request, Kaikeyi's heart misgave her, and she feared that on hearing it, her horror-stricken husband would exclaim, "God forbid! No oath or promise is strong enough to justify so heinous a sin," and recoil from her with abhorrence. She stood erect, and with folded hands, turning in the four directions, invoked a solemn voice the heavenly powers to witness and confirm the oath. "Oh, ye gods, you have heard and witnessed the promise given to be my husband. Sun, moon, planets, you are my holy witnesses. Yea, 5 elements, you have heard the promise. He who has never broken his word, my husband, has sworn to do my wish. Bear witness to this." Dasaras was looking at her with hungry eyes. He knew she knew her man, and she began boldly. "Do you remember, king, how when long ago in the field of battle you were about to lose your life? I drove your chariot in the dark night, took you out of the battlefield, removed the arrows from your body, and comforted and revived you. When you came out of your faint, you said something, did you not? You said, 'You have restored to me the life which my foes had taken from me. I shall give you any 2 gifts you asked.' Then I said, 'I want nothing now. It is joy enough now for me that you are alive. I shall ask for my gifts later. Do you remember this?' The king answered, 'Yes, I do remember this. Ask for your 2 gifts. You shall have them now.' Kaikeyi said, 'Remember, you have made a vow. You have given a pledge. You have sworn in the name of Ram. The gods and the 5 elements have witnessed your promise. I shall state my wishes. Your ancestors never broke their word. Prove yourself their worthy descendant by being true to the word you have given. With the preparations now afoot for the coronation, crown my son Bharat. This is my first wish. The second boon that I demand is send your son Ram to live in the Dandaka forest for 14 years. Remember the solemn vow that you cannot break. The good fame of your great dynasty is in your hands." Hare Krishna. I'm wondering, like, there was this promise that Dasarath made, but it was also supported by the promise he made to Kaikeyi's father that her son would become the next king. So there's a lot behind this. There's a lot behind it. If he doesn't crown Bharat as king, then he's broken his promise to Kaikeyi's father, although she's not bringing that up here. She may not know. But he did make that promise also. So, for elevation to heavenly planets, a king has to really be perfect in his administration of his kingdom, and he can't go around telling lies or breaking promises. So there's a lot going on behind this, and throw mantra into the mix and off we go. So in one sense, it kind of saves Dasarath from having to suffer a sinful reaction for breaking promise. But at the same time, Krishna's there in his incarnation as Ram, and that's more powerful than these other kinds of vows and promises, and it's kind of overrides everything. But there is that dynamic in there too. Krishna, Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.